On this week's episode, what the hell is the WWE gonna do without Daniel Bryan? Hello everybody and welcome to episode 38 of Byte That, the semi-somewhat maybe international professional wrestling podcast where we talk about the ups and downs of that which we love, which is the world of professional wrestling. My name is Juan Velos. I am from San Juan, Puerto Rico, and joining me this week is the one-man gang himself, all the way from Boston, Massachusetts. We got Ryan McNulty. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I'm still the only co-host with perfect attendance remaining, and I don't know if that's just a testament to not having a life or something like that, or dedication. I'm gonna go with dedication.
Let's go with the positive one. Of course, that does mean that Keith is not with us this week, sadly. I think we're exchanging something. Is there a rivalry between Keith and me or something? I don't know. Something's going on.
I don't know. This has happened before, though. We've had back-to-back shows where one of you was not there.
Yeah, something's weird. But before we do go on any further, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. If you like the show, remember to check out our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast, where we got the weekly filler, which is Ryan's show, where he talks about all the things he wasn't able to cover in the podcast. We have top 10 favorite wrestling video games. Just this week, I put up an unboxing video of the Wrestling Road Diaries. For those that don't know about it, check that out. It's a wrestling documentary featuring guys like Cole Cabana and Bryan Danielson, of course now known as Daniel Bryan. Check out our Twitter at ByteThatCast and the show on iTunes and Stitcher. And if you like it, rate and leave a comment, leave a review. That really goes a long way into supporting us. Now,
just don't leave a review about the Jim Cornette podcast.
Yes, please. For those that don't know, check out the review section on iTunes. I was looking at that the other day, and I'm like, Ryan, we got a review, man. We got another one. Then I look, and I guess somebody I didn't even know Jim Cornette had a podcast, but apparently he has one or something, and there's a 1-star review that we have right now, and it makes no mention of our podcast. Apparently, like, Jim Cornette is a terrible podcast host, although he was a terrible manager. So if you guys could help us out and, let's fade that one away, that would be awesome. Now, this is the moment where I sort of have to vent a little bit. Keith isn't here, but he doesn't know what has led up to this point right now. See, I go home, right? We're texting, we're ready for the podcast, and like within 2 seconds of going into the home, the internet dies. I start freaking out. I send Ryan a message. Dude, I don't know if we can do the podcast. Keith isn't here. You're going to have to one-man this. So everybody's freaking out. So then I realized that the only possible option is to literally take all of my production equipment into my car. I'll tweet a picture about this. It's going to be all over the place then. And I'm like about to freaking cry because it is the worst experience. I have no signal in my home. So I was going to call Ryan through Skype while recording on my equipment to then take to my computer to then edit to then go outside to then friggin', it's just a terrible experience. And within like 3 seconds of recording, boom, the internet's back. So here we are to talk about wrestling. I love this show, and like this experience has certainly shown it. Why do we love wrestling? I don't know. We'll talk about that slowly. But we do need to open the show, and I hope you enjoyed that story, so you learn a little bit more about us. Now into more negative news. Ryan, there's this guy that people love. He's all over the place. T-shirts are selling out. So what better way to have everything happen than this guy to just copy Stone Cold? He's living the legacy, he's living the dream of a top star. Why is he copying Stone Cold? And who am I talking about, Ryan?
I believe you're talking about Jinder Mahal.
Exactly.
And the issue here... Yes, so this is probably the worst way you can copy Stone Cold, and that's obviously with the neck injury that Daniel Bryan has sustained, and is going to have to take some time off and get surgery Thursday of this week as the date of this recording. Lucky for him, though, if you want to call it luck. It doesn't seem to be as severe as the injury Stone Cold had. And this was, I guess, attributed to just wear and tear. There's no actual pinpointed moment of when this injury occurred. But I guess they described the surgery in all the reports that it was going to be minorly invasive, as much as a neck surgery can be minorly invasive.
Yeah.
And he will miss 2 to 6 weeks, maybe more. They don't really know until the surgery's done.
That's still kind of crazy to think about, though. Like, neck surgery, I'll be back in like 2-3 weeks, man. Like, they tell me that. I'll be like freaking out. I'm like, I'm going to lose my job. What's going to happen? This leads to a lot of different things. Like, number one, Daniel Bryan is probably the guy after Dolph Ziggler, I guess, to be in this type of situation where the people are really behind this guy. Everybody's like, yes, so he is up there. Bam. In Dolph Ziggler's case, he got a concussion. Obviously, we know what happened after that. He's been on a consistent downward spiral. And now with this, you have to wonder, how badly do you think this will affect Daniel Bryan in a very short amount of time?
See, I was actually thinking about this, and there could be a silver lining to this. Obviously, this is bad timing, completely. It really couldn't be worse, except for if it was just before WrestleMania 30. About this injury, he's only had one defense with the championship, and he's going to have to lose it. Lucky for him, I think we can both easily agree that Daniel Bryan is in a much better spot than Dolph Ziggler was when he had his injury. So I think it's safe to say his spot is more secured. Now, the silver lining I was talking about is a lot of people were questioning if Daniel Bryan was going to lose momentum from, after winning the championship, kind of going into this not really high profile feud with Kane. It's sort of just they're kind of just spinning the tires until they want to promote their big feud for SummerSlam. So now that Bryan has to go away with this injury at arguably the height of his popularity, when he comes back, that there's just going to be that huge pop, and he's going to get a big swing of momentum for his big return.
Exactly. It's kind of nice, although it's bittersweet, but that this whole Kane thing happened at the same time that this happened, because they obviously can play into the story to sort of sell Kane as like this monster and all that. And as I mentioned in one of the previous episodes, I thought the Kane feud felt very temporary, and adding this realism certainly helps. And I think much like Triple H's return into 2002, I believe it was, with the knee situation and all that, obviously that was a way more severe situation than this one. But as you mentioned, I absolutely expect people to actually be a little bit refreshed to see Daniel Bryan come back. And if anything, I think this is a great opportunity because, we are getting all these reports that the WWE is concerned. Obviously, I always take these with a grain of salt, but that he's not as over as he is with the chants and all that. And I think this is a great test to see just how over he is. So the big question is, do you think that the WWE will have him involved in television, be it, much like they did with Triple H, which is they showed parts of the surgery and then interviews in there? Or do you think they're going to go the route where they just sort of lay low? They make reference to it, but we won't see him until either a surprise appearance or his next pay-per-view match.
Well, I think that kind of brings us to the million-dollar question, if you will, is once the surgery happens, does he keep the title or do they strip him of the title? So I think depending which route that goes is where they're going to, then go with how often will he be on TV, or will they update us on his situation. Obviously, if he keeps the title, I'm going to guess he's still going to try and make some appearances here and there just to remind everyone. I mean, it would be nice to have the champion be able to make some appearances as long as it's not negatively affecting his recovery. But if they strip him of the title, I would say just keep him off TV until his return so that when he comes back, he gets that loud welcome back pop that he should get. Because Otherwise, people are already, if he's still on TV every other week, then it's not going to be a big deal when he actually comes back and wrestles as much as it could be if you left him off for a month or so.
Do you think that the WWE is going to strip Daniel Bryan off the championship, though?
I think it's, like I said, once they figure out the timetable, if he's going to be gone until SummerSlam, you kind of have to. That's a pretty long time to just keep the champion off TV. I know they've kind of thrown out that whole 30-day defense rule where if you don't defend it in 30 days, they strip you of the title.
Dean Ambrose got rid of that.
We've seen that gone away. Yeah, I mean, we saw that go away, and also, well, yeah, Dean Ambrose. But usually, like, an injury would cause that. But even you saw CM Punk when he got injured back at the TLC pay-per-view a couple years ago or a year ago. They kept the title on him even though he couldn't defend it for a little over a month. But I think if it's any longer than a month or so, they're probably going to take the belt off of him.
Do you think that Daniel Bryan being injured, though, considering, there's a lot of things that, like, there's no other top babyface aside from John Cena, is the WWE in trouble? Because, I mean, even if it's not a severe neck surgery, it's still a neck surgery. And, I mean, Daniel Bryan is no rookie that's been wrestling for 5 years. So, obviously, his body has taken a toll, not just in WWE, but everywhere. So, do you think that the WWE is concerned going forward of how far they push Bryan?
So, how far they would push him now coming back from the injury?
Exactly. Like, not in terms of character, but he's a human being that... I mean, he needs to put his body on the line way more than John Cena.
Yes.
That's one thing I will give the promo on Raw props, where he deliberately mentioned that, my style takes a bigger toll on my body than the other guys. I don't have that size. John Cena can throw a clothesline and make it look something, but Daniel Bryan has to jump. Daniel Bryan has to do a lot more stuff just to get to that level. So how do you push a guy like that and you feel comfortable as a public stock or something company, and you feel comfortable about that?
Well, maybe you slow down on the gauntlet matches and things like that, multiple matches in one night. I don't expect Daniel Bryan's style to get watered down at all. I mean, that he's the type of guy that he doesn't want to half-ass it. He doesn't want to go 90% or 80%. He's going to go 100% every single time. And it's really WWE's only way to control that is to, maybe protect him, maybe not have him work as many matches, or a little bit less time. But as far as his wrestling style, I mean, that's still all on Daniel Bryan. Most of the time, WWE, I don't think, as much as people think, tell the wrestlers exactly what they should do in the ring. That's probably more on the wrestlers than I think more than any of us really know. They really just maybe slow down. Maybe he's not wrestling these long matches on Raw all the time, but I expect him to kind of be the same old Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, but there's one thing that I'm really concerned about, though. It's that with all this, a lot of people were like, okay, so we finally have the next John Cena, the next face of the company. But it seems like John Cena is still the safe guy. CM Punk's gone. So it's like, it's once again, John Cena is the WWE. Daniel Bryan, it seems like he is just, if you're a WWE fan, you're like, great, I have him there. But he's not John Cena. He's not the Make-A-Wish guy. Although, of course, there are other things that Daniel Bryan has done that we can talk about. But it's like, damn it, doesn't it sort of upset you as a fan? Like it does to me that, like, I don't know if there's gonna be anybody after Cena of the, like that level. I'm having trouble like gathering words in the English language and just putting them together right now. It's that serious, man.
I don't think anyone's going to step. I mean, Daniel Bryan's probably the closest person to step in Cena's place, but as long as Cena's there, he is going to be the guy. And Daniel Bryan was, like a solid placement right behind him. In a lot of ways, he did have things over John Cena, but when it comes down to it, John Cena is still the guy. He is still the face of the company. I mean, the crowd reactions, you could argue, are a lot better for Bryan, but when WWE is looking for a representative, they go to Cena. and that's their poster boy until otherwise specified. And I don't think he was really ever going to take that place unless Cena stepped down or started to slow down. But I think they do have the right to be concerned with the fact that now, who was last year's top 3 stars, there's only one left right now for this run until Bryan comes back. So who's stepping up? And I think the first people you can look to is obviously the Shield.
Exactly. And we will be talking about more regarding the Shield and everything that's going to be leading up to the next pay-per-view. However, I do want to keep it with John Cena right now. You know, we do have this John Cena Bray Wyatt storyline continuing. We now know that they will be having a match at the next pay-per-view, which is Payback, in a last man standing match. Now, I think that personally, this is an excellent match type. I think a lot of people were expecting maybe an I Quit match because it would play a lot more into Bray Wyatt's character, although obviously that could be held up until SummerSlam. And especially given this Dana Bryan situation, they need to stretch the other things that they have going on right now because you don't know. You know, hypothetically, you said 6 to 8 weeks. What if something happens or, it's a surgery at the end of the day? Something could go wrong. It's like, hey, guess what? You're retiring. Hey, guess what? 6 months to a year. So having said that, this is essentially the biggest one-on-one feud going on right now. Are you happy with the last man standing match for Payback?
Yes, and definitely more so than an I Quit match because think about it this way. I mean, I think it would be a little too predictable for an I Quit match because we all know they'll never make John Cena say I quit ever. So
Never.
You can pretty much throw that match type out the window for any John Cena match. So last man standing, much better stipulation. I expect it to be a good match, and I think we all expected there to be another stipulation match. I think we had mentioned that on a previous show, because it would be weird if they just went back to a one-on-one. So they're upping the ante, and we probably will see this go a little bit further. But for now, I think last man standing is the right stipulation to sort of kick things up a notch while leaving room for, the final match to be a Hell in a Cell or something else. So this is a good stipulation and a good fit for this pay-per-view.
Now, because we still have a little bit more time before the next pay-per-view, I was actually thinking about this after Raw, which is that a lot of people are wondering about the conclusion of the storyline. Who's going to win the final match? Who's going to get the last laugh? More than that, I'm thinking once this feud ends, Bray Wyatt is in a pretty tough predicament. Because you just faced John Cena. You've been battling John Cena for a couple pay-per-views. Realistically, where do you go from here? Because does the WWE choose to use his heat or his reaction? Because, he does have a lot of fans, like the way they're playing that out. To build another guy, or do they put him against another well-established guy? I couldn't really wrap my head around an answer about that. So do you have one?
It's a really good question because I mean let's go back to the beginning of the year. So we got Bray Wyatt going into a feud with Daniel Bryan, which then leads into a feud with the Shield, and then he feuds with John Cena. So those were your premier groups, or wrestlers or whatever. Anyone else aside from maybe a Triple H or something is a step down. Because everyone else that you would see as a top guy is a heel as well. It really does put Bray Wyatt in a tough spot once this feud is over because anyone else he feuds with afterwards, it's going to look like a step down.
Exactly. And as I mentioned in the past, there's a Team 3D shoot interview available at youtube.com/ByteThatCast. Cheap plug. But in that interview, Bubba Ray Dudley, Brother Ray, or Bully Ray, however you want to call him, he states the pretty much obvious, in that in professional wrestling, in order for a wrestler or a guy to be established, he's got to be put over by a guy that's bigger than him, in terms of fame, just recognition. The problem here is, like, as you mentioned, you've given Bray Wyatt essentially not John Cena, you've given him everybody. You know, he beat Daniel Bryan cleanly. I think a lot of people forgot about that. It's kind of crazy just how wrestling works. Like that happened, and I guarantee you, a lot of people have already forgotten about that. He's faced the Shield. It's like, is he a built up guy? Because the way that I see him, although I'm very happy, because I mean, I think a lot of us were worried when he first came in. We were like, he's still the young guy. You know, he is still coming up. So I just don't see that, and I don't see a face turn. I don't see a lot of things unless the Wyatt family implodes after Payback, and we see like a Luke Harper, Bray Wyatt storyline or something, or kind of like when the Straight Edge Society started to break down. Do you see that as a possibility, like an implosion of the Wyatt family?
Not anytime soon, because I would hope that when they felt that the other Wyatt family members were sort of on the cusp of breaking out, that they would choose that time to split them up, because right now, you know, you're not feeling like Luke Harper and Eric Rowan broke away right now, that they would be able to survive and do well. I mean, they're both talented, and especially Luke Harper, but I don't think they would be very successful if they split up right now. It would not be good timing. What's so funny?
Okay, so subtopic about the subtopics. Can we talk about Eric Rowan for a couple minutes? Like,
is this going to be a repeat of what we were talking about yesterday?
Essentially, yeah, because in the
that's
show,
cool. That's cool.
I think we have two running jokes in the show that we reference, but we don't necessarily talk about. That being JTG being employed, which, by the way, hey, today 7-year anniversary for JTG being employed in the WWE. So that, wow, dude, wow, congratulations, JTG. I'd send you a gift basket, but I wouldn't know where to send it. That
is the last time he's been on TV, or the last time he was on Raw is still when he jobbed to Ryback for saying something on Twitter.
Yeah, something like that. I'm thinking like, Jesus, put the guy in one of these things where like all the heels come out to take on the baby faces, or like even on Raw, you know, like they brought all these guys. Like at least put the man in there. Like he's not good enough to be in that. He's not good enough to call Backlash. You know, that type of thing. But the other thing is Eric Rowan. Now, we casually mention it, but I want to dissect this just a little bit more. Is there any, like, this is completely serious, off joke, although sometimes, you know, it's a little hard for us. Is there any way that Eric Rowan can have a singles career in the WWE after the Wyatt family? And if so, how would that even begin?
That's a tough question, but I'll sort of mention some things we were talking about yesterday off screen or off recording, whatever we want, off radio.
Off-cast.
Is that, you know, a lot of people are kind of, you know, underwhelmed by Eric Rowan, or they don't think, you know, I mean, they look at Luke Harper and they're saying, oh, you know, if there's going to be any of the other Wyatt family guys that stand out, it's him. But to Rowan's to his credit, he pretty much does everything right to sort of just look like a follower, and and he also, you know, he doesn't bring the group down at all. He's not, you know, botching his moves or anything. He's a solid worker. You know, he works well with the group, and nothing he does is a detriment. He helps complement with his look and his, like, the sheep mask and everything. It all goes together. Now, when it comes to a singles career, he would have to have some sort of gimmick change, obviously, but it's really tough what they could do with him, if they want to go with some sort of Highlanders thing or whatever. But I mean, I think on the other side, Harper could just be like a crazy hillbilly and get over like big time. He could keep that same look, maybe start, you know, cutting some promos and stuff. But I think Harper could keep the same look and be over as hell and just, you know, kick people in the face all day, because that big boot and that clothesline looks so devastating that is enough to get him over.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, he's not a small guy. Like, I was watching him on Raw
Both of them
against
are
Cena.
huge
Yeah.
guys.
Like, I think because people are buy so much into the characters, they forget, like, these aren't 5'11" guys. Like, he was taking on Cena on Raw, and when Cena got him up for the AA, I was like, damn, like, I forgot. Like, this is a big guy. And as sad as it is, I sort of see his career going the way of Trevor Murdoch, and this is, like, the weirdest example, where after his tag run with Lance Cade, may he rest in peace, they sort of gave him like a singing gimmick. He became like the complete opposite of who his character was. So I actually fully see him be like the red bearded babyface or whatever the hell. Like they play into all his stuff.
The redheaded.
Like he starts wearing like different jumpsuits, bodysuits. What is that called? I forget. Just what he wears.
Jumpsuit.
A jumpsuit. Yeah, exactly.
Would be correct.
So I see that as a possibility. Wait, Ryan, I'm getting a phone call. Wait, true. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I just got off the phone. Not really, but it's time for this week's Tweet of the Week.
Alright, much like Black Rain, I am here from the deepest, darkest corner of your mind to bring you this week's Tweet of the Week. Now, this week's tweet is brought to you by @ripeback on Twitter. Actually went to Twitter for this one. Surprise, surprise. So this week's tweet of the week is Natalia draws like a TNA house show.
Tweet of the Week. And thank you, Keith, for that somewhat maybe beautiful Tweet of the Week, and for phoning it in, sir. We love you. We miss you. We hope to see you here next week. And hey, follow us on Twitter @ByteThatCast. We tweet during Raw and other pro wrestling events. And if Keith finds something funny on Twitter or sometimes on the Squared Circle on Reddit, it could just be the Tweet of the Week. Now, before Raw happened, I was talking to Ryan during Skype during Raw, and he tells me, hey, did you see that Sandow thing? And honestly, I had no idea. So I go on Reddit, and apparently Sandow unleashed some kind of pipe bomb. So during a Raw commercial break, I go, what's it? And I go, holy crap. So they just gave him a live microphone on the pre-show. Obviously, it was gimmicked. You know, it was in kayfabe. But it was cool to see him make fun of himself. Like, he was referencing the whole Magneto situation, how he can be on a show without having to dress up in such way. And I wanted to get your reaction again on just how out of nowhere this is, and is there any reason why we should look more into it?
Yeah, first of all, it was a complete surprise. I mean, this sort of came out of nowhere, and they had this pre-show going on. I like that they're kind of experimenting with what they want to do with sort of these pre-show network things and how they can develop characters not just on Raw and SmackDown. So it's kind of cool. I mean, you look at Bad News Barrett, that's something that developed from the JBL and Cole show. So I'm seeing them experiment with this. Now, with Sandow himself, I really liked this promo because even though it was very brief, you actually felt that you were getting an authentic Sandow. Like, he was telling it like it is, how he really felt. It came off as very genuine, and it was exciting to watch because you felt like, he was saying whatever he felt like saying. So I really enjoyed it, and I hope this leads to something, and this wasn't just a one-time thing, and that they actually have some sort of plan with this, and it's not just going to die.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't watched it, go check out the Raw pre-show. It's available on the network right now, although the Raw itself isn't. Remember, Raw is available like 30 days or something after it originally airs. Now, the problem was that on Raw, when he came out, he was apparently going to do part 2 of that. Then he basically goes into a match, loses, Q segment. Obviously, they're not going to sell everything on the one show. You know, they already gave us that hint. Like right now, we are talking about this. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what they wanted, just to get people to talk about this, see if people gave a damn or not. Although it's funny because he spoke so differently. it felt more like, I don't know what his real name is, but it felt like the person behind the character Sandow. It didn't feel like Sandow. It felt like a frustrated professional wrestler. And we've seen this a lot is the problem. Like, it's ever since CM Punk's pipe bomb, we see these segments like Dolph Ziggler on radio shows or something, is honest, but then look where that gets him. Obviously in this situation it's a little different, but we can go back to Zack Ryder's Last Resort, which lasted a total of 3 episodes, and then after that, boom, he's gone. So it's a situation of, does a pipe bomb matter after the one CM Punk delivered, or is it just seen as like, hey, it's another guy bitching about his career? Whoop-de-doo.
Well, yeah, and at the same time we say this like CM Punk was the first guy to speak his mind in on a wrestling show. I mean, you could look at Joey Styles' shoot or Paul Heyman's shoot,
could go all the way
or
back.
countless ones in WCW and all that. But obviously CM Punk's is what launched his career, and I think that's sort of what separates him from a lot of other guys, is because that's what made him. Now, Sandow's route, I mean, it's still exciting to see something a little bit different, even if it is sort of similar to Punk. They're obviously going a different way with it, where they might be doing something where he can't get any time to talk on Raw, but he gets to say what he wants. Like, he'll just keep interrupting the pre-shows and stuff, because it was smart that, and this is kind of just hitting me now why they did it the way that they did, is if you think about it, he comes down on Raw, says, oh, I had this speech on the pre-show, and then he doesn't get to say anything else. Because, first of all, they don't want to give away the goods on Raw. They want you to see the pre-show because they're like, oh, man. They want to give you the feeling that anything can happen on the pre-show. They're trying to give you a reason to tune in. And now the wheels are turning in my head that why it was done the way that it was done. That was just basically a plug for the pre-show. Be like, anything can happen, so you don't want to miss it.
Exactly, and it's great because, as I'm pretty sure all 3 of us have mentioned in the past, we sort of miss these random backstage segments, even though this isn't backstage, but it's nice that they do that, and even though it doesn't fit into a 3-hour show, it fits into the 30-minute show before Raw, so that's kind of nice. I'm looking forward to that. And I hope it does lead to something. I think Sandow is a great talent. He deserves a lot, and I think it'll go well for him. Now, another person that had character development and probably the most unexpected was Alicia Fox. Paige and Alicia Fox had a pretty good match on Raw that, oddly enough, and it's sad that I say oddly, the people were really into. Like, the crowd. Obviously, it does help that the WWE put out a tremendous Paige video package before her match, hyping her up with the Scorpion crosslock and all that. But it was nice that not only did the match really feature that the Divas can wrestle, even though Alicia Fox should maybe lay low on them tilt the world backbreakers. She does them a little too much for my liking. Did you enjoy the match? And then the second question is, did this mark a next step? Because afterwards, apparently Alicia Fox quit, but then she clarified. But there were character developments in both ends.
Yeah, I mean, this was probably one of the most successful Diva segments in a really long time. Obviously, the one where Paige won the title was another good one, but the crowd is not the best crowd to judge off of, because that's a once a year type of scenario. But this was probably, for a normal crowd, one of the most successful Diva segments in a very long time. And it's crazy when you give a little bit of time to give a reason for a match, how the crowd will actually buy into it. And when you also strategically place the match in a spot on the show that will help it succeed. So you kind of have that combination of, this was like the first real match of the night that wasn't just a short little thing, combined with giving Alicia Fox a little mic time to get some heat, because she's not on TV enough for people to even really care about her, but instantly she gets a little bit of mic time and boom, they're invested.
Exactly, and as we mentioned during Raw, it's the psychology of not even just the match itself, but the match placement. That was like the second match of the night. The people aren't tired yet. We're only on the first hour of Raw, so they have a little bit more energy to spare. Then before the match, you lay out a video package to hype up the person that's about to come out. Then after the match, you develop the person that didn't get a video package showing her side. So guess what? All it took is collectively maybe a minute or two, aside from the match itself, to build not just one diva, but both. One clearly is a face, one clearly is a heel. And it all just took is a little bit more time. So I absolutely think that this showed that divas can be featured and cared about. Because Trish Stratus had an interview where Trish had an interview where she basically mentioned that maybe the people don't really care about the divas all that much today, but at the same time, there's not a lot of reason that the WWE gives us. I mean, right now we play into the whole Total Divas thing, and as you mentioned on Raw, it's like they're reacting on Raw to things that they filmed months ago, and like the whole timeline thing that we've spoken about in our previous episodes, but it can happen. Now, do you think that Alicia Fox is the proper diva to be on the heel role of this apparently growing feud? Because it might grow.
Absolutely. I mean, she's probably gotten the most heat a diva's gotten in a while just from that one segment alone. So they should probably just continue this into Payback and do Alicia Fox versus Paige. You gotta Alicia Fox get some win in there, whether it be a tag match or whatever. But I think that they should definitely run with this, especially because she hasn't really quit, luckily, because, I mean, that would have been a hell of a way to go out when you actually, things are clicking and then you just leave. But, because, I mean, most of us would have taken that at face value.
Yeah.
How many divas have we seen just do that quit angle and they actually quit, So I think a lot of us fully expected her to be gone after that, but I'm actually really happy to hear that she's not gone.
Exactly. I mean, like, think back to Eve Torres, Caitlin's gone. Like, a lot of divas leave usually after this type of ankle happens. With wrestlers, with superstars, it's just, taking a break or a sabbatical or whatever. But it's nice that they gave that. And one thing that I love is that can JBL be involved in every segment or altercation? Because just his facial expressions are always... Is he in depression? Is JBL in depression? It feels like he is. He's sad all the time. Why?
Because think about who he has to commentate with every single Monday and Friday.
It could be worse. It could be
Tuesday,
it could be Don
I guess,
West.
whatever.
It could be Don West.
That's true. Well, no, you know what? For me, even worse would be Mike Tenay. I would much rather commentate with Don West than Mike Tenay.
If you guys would like to hear us talk about just the general aspect of wrestling commentary, let us know on YouTube, on Twitter. We may talk about that in the future. Or hey, we got a couple more things coming up in the future that I think you guys will like. Now, having said that, there was a topic that, although I wasn't here last week, hey, I'm a listener of the show myself. Great show, Ryan and Keith. I love you guys. I follow Byte that. Pretty good podcast. You. And there was one topic that you brought up that I'm glad that it's kind of bittersweet though, because the reason that topic was moved was so the three of us could be involved, and now instead of Keith, it's me.
Yep. Sorry, Keith. I kind of screwed you over.
Yeah. This is the point where I don't know if you will. If you want to edit yourself and go ahead. If not, then whatever I say, Keith agrees with 100%. This topic is, of course, what makes a compelling babyface in professional wrestling today? We could talk about this for episodes, not just one, because it's a hot topic. Not the store, not the t-shirts, but the chat itself. And the reason is because it's a lot easier to like a very good heel. Think Bray Wyatt, Bad News Bear, people that give you catchphrases and stuff like that, but aren't supposed to be revered by the crowd. But what does it really take for a babyface to not only go up, but stay up? What does it take, Ryan?
In the bedroom.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just ruined your whole intro there. What does it take? I think today it's very different than it was, years ago, because the whole white bread baby face thing just doesn't do it anymore. People don't buy into that. Just being the opposition to a heel is no longer enough. And I think it doesn't matter how bad you are, how good you are, how evil the things you do are, how heroic the things you do are, you have to be interesting. You have to be a compelling character to be a good babyface. And I think people just latch on to interesting, cool characters. I mean, you look at a show like Breaking Bad and you look at Walter White, he's not a good guy at all. He's a drug dealer, he kills people, but everybody loves his character. Everyone's invested in him. And I mean, wrestling, as always, we've said it plenty of times in the show, it is a reflection of society, of today's society. So what's popular today are those dramas, those, shows like Breaking Bad and Game of Thrones, these episodic dramas. That's the big thing. That's what everyone's into. That's what everyone binge watches. And Raw being episodic TV should try and have more interesting characters. And I think that's why a guy like Bray Wyatt is becoming as big as he is because he's getting these great crowd reactions because he's an interesting character. And he's probably the most interesting character right now in wrestling. And that's why we've seen everyone become attached to this. So to summarize my first point, it's be interesting.
And it's kind of funny that you mention all that, and beautiful points, by the way. And I agree 100%, so that means so does Keith, that even though you're saying that the standard babyface doesn't work nowadays, just being the opposition of a bad guy, at the same time, we are going back to those simple times. Because you look back in the day, everybody had a wacky gimmick. And even though it may have been stupid, it may have been dumb, it may have been something, but you could look at that guy and know where he comes from. You look at Bray Wyatt and you're like, okay, I don't know who this guy is, but he's weird. Be it for the beard, be it for the combination of his clothing. But you look at a guy like Cody Rhodes and you're like, oh, okay, so 20-something dude that wrestles well. You need to invest so much time. Because physically speaking, you can tell, great, he's in great shape. But so are Zack Ryder, so are JTG, so why aren't those guys on TV? So I want to take it to this first example. Could you break down Cody Rhodes a little bit for me as to a guy that he faced Triple H and Shawn Michaels with a legacy, when he was Ted DiBiase Jr. He was handed a lot of opportunities that technically should have made him an upper guy, But instead, we see that, he's tag teaming now. He hasn't been really given that ball, although he's still young. So do you think that he is on the opposite of what makes a compelling babyface? And if so, why?
I mean, Cody Rhodes is a great example of someone who's really liked, but just hasn't crossed the threshold. He hasn't gotten to that upper tier. And he's been in the company for a very long time now. And he's still not there. And we talked a couple weeks ago about talent coming in and leapfrogging over mid-card guys. Look no further than Cody Rhodes. I mean, this is a guy who should be in the main event by now, but he's not there. And I think he hasn't quite hit it with the audience, and he hasn't gotten that reaction. He's just not quite there. He did at one point have an interesting character, with the whole dashing gimmick. And if you look at him on the JBL and Cole show, he is the most fun person to watch on that entire show. And if there was just a little bit more of that on Raw, I think people would be more interested.
Exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head again there, which is that guys like Cody Rhodes, maybe right now he doesn't work, but when he was dashing Cody Rhodes, and then when he got the whole the change, which is the opposite, the whole mask situation, he got the theme change. Dude, people were buying into him. I remember friends telling me, oh, he should be a world champion material. Yet when they saw him in Legacy, he was in very similar body shape. He was pretty much the same guy, but people didn't buy him. Yet those very same people were like, oh, they got to put the belt on this guy. His gimmick's awesome and all that. And it's because he found his niche. He found exactly what sells him. And a lot of times, guys like Randy Orton, maybe they like being a heel, and they're very open about it. Even Daniel Bryan himself has said in multiple interviews, he prefers being a heel. Why? Because being a babyface, I could just say the name of a town and people are going to like me. They're going to forget about me in 5 minutes, but it's a lot harder for people to not just boo you, but hate you. Like, they want the other guy to beat you. And it's sad that some guys are in that situation where, well, we have too many bad guys, so, hey, guess what? You got to turn some points, so now you're a good guy. So that's one example. And I want to sort of controversially bring this over to our current WWE World Heavyweight Champion, Daniel Bryan. Let's assume he's not injured. Let's assume everything's going well. You know, he is in perfect body shape to go at it for 5 years in a row without taking a break. The moment that Daniel Bryan became champion, people immediately started turning on him. Now, I'm not saying a lot of people, but I am saying that people that I saw on Twitter, on
a vocal
Facebook,
minority.
Yeah. But the same thing happened with a guy named John Cena. Almost the exact same thing. Freaking Dr. Thugonomics rapper. Oh, he should be champion. Wins. Then people are like, 5 moves of doom. Guess what, guys? Maybe a little bit controversial, but I went back and saw a lot of John Cena's matches ever since his debut match. He wrestled pretty much the same. He ran just as awkwardly. He did a body splash just as awkwardly. It was the same guy. Just the gimmick changed. But it's still the same guy. Do you think that Daniel Bryan makes a compelling babyface with the way he is right now?
Daniel Bryan's an interesting topic. Quick note on the John Cena thing. I think a lot of also what put people against John Cena was they pushed him so hard that he looked invincible, and I think that's what turned a lot of people away. Now, Daniel Bryan isn't going to really run into that scenario where he's going to always look as invincible because he's pretty much always playing the underdog, and he's a believable underdog. Nobody buys into Cena being an underdog now. I mean, even if it's a big deal to lift Mark Henry, you know, you're still not the underdog because you're John Cena, you know, multiple-time world champion. You've beaten everybody. But Daniel Bryan's a little bit different. He's a guy of smaller stature. So he can kind of play that role all the time without it becoming the old song and dance because he literally is the underdog in most of his matches. Now, Daniel Bryan's character, though, is not as it's not super compelling, but I think what really gets Daniel Bryan over is the interactivity with his matches, the yes chants, his explosive match style, wrestling style. So the crowd is into his matches, and his matches are great, and they can be a part of it, and that's why I think he is a good babyface.
Before the show, I was thinking I wanted to bring up some controversial examples, and sadly, the two that I have are pretty controversial because neither one of them are alive. Now, the first one, do you want me to start with positive or negative? Choose one.
Go negative. Let's end on a positive note.
Yeah, thank you. Good call. Chris Benoit. Chris Benoit, underdog, not 6 feet tall, was in no way billed as a big guy. Did he make a compelling babyface when he was champion?
I don't really think so, to be honest. I think people enjoyed his wrestling and got into him, but I never saw him as super over. He never really hit that stride where he was just super over, but he was always on that upper tier. But someone like Eddie Guerrero was always more over because, I mean, Eddie Guerrero is a great character, a fun character. And the crowd latched onto him a lot more than Benoit.
No, and oddly enough, you just brought up my second example, Eddie Guerrero. The reason that I brought this combination up is because think about both of these men's careers, independently of what happened afterwards. People, I do want to clarify. When I bring up Chris Benoit, I'm not bringing up controversy because of what he did in that situation. I'm bringing up his wrestling career all the way up to 2004, 2005, up to that point in particular. Both men were revered for their wrestling moves in ECW, WCW, going into the WWF, later WWE. So these are two guys that, even though they had different fighting styles, that's why they came in. You know, that's why they became recognized figures. When Chris Benoit, for me, won the championship, it was like, I love Benoit, and I really didn't care about him because I was like, I care about him because I know he does the headbutt thing, the crossface thing. That's cool, but why do I like you? I have no emotional attachment to who you are. Yet Eddie Guerrero, yeah, I loved him for all the things you mentioned. He was funny, great wrestling style, but it's all the things that you didn't bring up that I loved about Eddie. He could look at you in the audience or at the TV and you're like, oh, okay, he doesn't need to tell me anything. He had that emotion that he could deliver through his eyes, through his smile. I mean, look at all the pictures there are of Eddie when he passed away. You know, it was so easy to find just a million pictures of the guy because he was so photogenic in terms of just selling who he was as a human being despite the past that he had. Now, I don't think Daniel Bryan has that. I will argue that between Chris Benoit and Eddie, Daniel Bryan has a much more bigger relation to Chris Benoit's story, where if you took away the yes chance, I would argue that he would quickly grow stale and the people would not get behind him. Am I wrong on that? I'm aware that there are some people listening right now that maybe hate me, but hey, I love Daniel Bryan, okay? I'm going to point, I follow this dude since 2005. Like, I love the guy, but I think it's true.
We can have slightly controversial opinions. It's okay. Don't ask for forgiveness.
I love you guys. And
we have such an intelligent audience that they understand that people can have different opinions. Exactly. So I do agree with you. If it wasn't for the yes chance and the crowd feeling involved in the match, that Daniel Bryan probably wouldn't be too much more over than Benoit was. And I think that he found something that skyrocketed his career. Benoit and Eddie are a great example because let's just say, for argument's sake, that their wrestling skills, although styles are different, that their skill is equal. You look at an interesting character versus a not as interesting character, and who did the audience latch onto more? And it was clearly Eddie. So I think that's almost the best way to do that argument, is because those two guys had careers, same time frame, everything. So they're the perfect argument example. So good on you for bringing that one up. And yeah, it's really for Daniel Bryan's sake. The yes chance made his career without a doubt.
Yeah, so overall, I don't think anybody can make the argument that Daniel Bryan will grow completely stale or that the people will completely turn on him. I think that he's in a great spot. And it's awesome that he is where he is.
So I think to summarize this, our topic is what makes a compelling babyface. Maybe you just need one of the two, and that is, 1, be an interesting character, 2, have something interactive. And you could almost even argue Hulk Hogan. I mean, he did have tons of charisma, but was it his interactivity with the crowd that is more so than his character? But I mean, that's a whole different era. But I don't know. Just quick thoughts on Hulk Hogan.
I think that Hulk Hogan, almost every wrestler will say it. He wasn't that great, in the ring. But every single other thing he got right. When you look at the guy, I mean, he was balding pretty early on in his career. Like, a guy like that nowadays would probably never get over. But he interacted with the audience.
That's mean. Cesaro, man, what the fuck?
but Cesaro doesn't have hair down to his neck. It's a big difference.
I don't know. He made it cool.
Exactly. Yeah, true. But with Hulk Hogan, his moveset played off to the crowd. Like, everything led up to the point where he would look at the crowd like, oh, I'm going to do the big boot and the light drop. Like, he was able to figure out the psychology of leading up to the conclusion of the match and made it in a way that, even though it was obvious, everybody knew it was obvious, but that's why they loved it. Because you knew at some point he was going to Hulk up.
You get to be a part of it.
Exactly. Like, Hulk Hogan wasn't a wrestler for himself. He was a vessel for everybody in that audience. versus other wrestlers that do something and then go like, hey, look at me. I'm pointing at you. I'm screaming. Like, a lot of independent wrestlers are very guilty of this. Come on, let's go. It's like you do something cool, then you look at the crowd like, hey, invest time in me because I did that cool thing. The people are the ones that lead you to that cool thing, to me, and that's why I think that Hulk Hogan made a compelling babyface. Despite the fact that I'm not a fan of his at all, I understand exactly why he became who he was. So, for those listening, what makes a compelling babyface for you? If you're listening to us on YouTube, leave a comment. Otherwise, hey, leave us a tweet at ByteThatCast. Remember, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/ByteThatCast, where we have the weekly filler, which is Ryan's show, where he talks about all the things that we were not able to cover in the podcast. You can also check out our top 10 countdowns, including our top 10 favorite wrestling video games or top 10 WrestleMania moments. I just posted an unboxing video of the Wrestling Road Diaries, both 1 and 2, which I got off of Cole Cabana's ColtMerch.com. And although we can't talk about it quite much, I'm just going to say that the weekly filler and the podcast won't be the only shows on the YouTube channel. Stay tuned for that. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook at ByteThatCast. We tweet during Raw, we tweet during wrestling events, and all over the week. And hey, if you like the show, leave a review over at iTunes and Stitcher by searching Byte That. Help us rid of that Jim Cornette thing. Please, go ahead. So for Ryan and Keith, I'm Juan. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody. We love you.
See you later.
This is awkward.
That was the worst fucking transition you've ever done.
I didn't know what to do. Okay, give me another one.
No, we're doing that.
Okay.